Hello children. Hi. Good morning. Children, we are discussing our history. In this history, you will learn so many points. The last classes, I completed two topics. In those two topics, I explained the ancient period of our lives. How did they live, our people? How did they prepare tools? What items they used in their daily lives, where did they live, what are the hobbies of those people. These are all things we are learning. To continue the same in this class, how the hunter gatherers growing from gathering food to growing food. In the third lesson of our history, from gathering to growing food, how the early humans developed from gathering stage to growing stage. See children, in this picture, in the first early humans, they are gathering the food items in their surrounding areas. At nowadays, one farmer is growing their food, cultivating the land and they growing that food. Nowadays, we are all eating variety types of food items. In olden days, they did not know any varieties. Now, let us discuss what are the food items they ate nowadays, what we are all eating. Different plants grow in different conditions. Now you know very well this point. But in the early humans, the early days people, they did not know this point. Different plants grow in different conditions. For example, rice requires more water. Which areas has lot of water facility, that areas are suitable for growing paddy. Then wheat and barley. Wheat and barley grow in very little water areas also. And at the same time, different animals prefer different environment. All the animals could not exist all the environment. Suppose camel. Camel live in desert areas. And walrus, polar bear, in the frozen areas they live. Hill areas, sheep, goat can survive. Forest areas, all the wild animals. Like that, one animals prefers different environment. Okay, children. Now, in the beginning of farming and herding, how did they start farming and herding? Before lesson, I explained you 12,000 years ago, the climate of the world changing, the temperature increasing, the grasslands developed. That's why all the grass eating animals gathered in grass areas. Those animals followed by the human beings. Human beings followed those grass eating animals. These are all points you discussed in the last class. So, 12,000 years ago, the climate of the world changing. And so were plants and animals that people used as food. At the time, plants and animals that people used as foods. Men and women and children probably observed several things. What did they observe? They observe how the plants are growing, what are the which type of grass was eaten by the animals, which environment which animals are live. These are all points they learned in those days. The places where edible plants were found, which areas they had the edible plants. how the seeds broke off stalks. These are all things they learned in those days. They fell on the ground. Those seeds fell on the ground. New plants sprouted from them. Perhaps they began looking after the plants. Okay, they started growing the little plants. They began looking after the plants. They protected those plants from the birds and animals. In this way, people became farmers. Like that, they learn how to growing of the plants and grasses. Next, how did they become herders? Herder, who keeps the cattle, that person is called herder. Women, men, and children could also attract and tame animals by leaving food for them near their shelters. Where did they live? Those early people lived in the caves and forests, some areas. In the surrounding areas, some animals are also living. They provided some food to those animals. Automatically, what happened? Those all our animals revolves around the shelters of those hunter-gatherers areas. People also attract and tame animals by leaving food for them near their shelters. The first animal to be tamed was the wild dog. What was the first pet animal of the people is the dog, wild dog. Later, people encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camps where they lived. Later, after some days, people encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camps where they lived. Sheep, goat, they live in herds. They constructed little sheds to those animals beside their camps. They protect those animals also. They provide little food to them, and like that they are become herders also. Cattle in that sheds, they keep cattle, pig, sheep, goat. These are all animals, and most of them ate grass. Often, people protected these animals from attacks by other wild animals. These are the food items of remaining wild animals. So, those people protected these animals, cattle, pig, sheep, goat, by other wild animals. Like that, now the people are changed. First, they become the farmer. Next, they become herder also. Now, they want to settle in one area. If you plant a tree, you will notice that it takes some time to grow. This may be for several days, weeks, months, in some cases, years. When people began growing plants, it meant that they had to stay in the same place for a long time. They did not move. In the first lesson, I explained you the hunter gatherers are nomads. Nomads means people who are moving from place to place. Those people are called nomads for searching food or water or seasonal food items, whatever may be. But now the thinking ability of those people was changed. They want to stay in a one place for a long time. Why did they think like that? The reason is they want to protect the plants. looking after the plants. They want to watering those plants, they are weeding the plants, and driving away animals and birds till the grain ripened. When the ripened grains come to their hand, up to that, those people stayed in the same place, and then the grain had to be used very carefully. They used that grains, what they produce in that land, those grains all are they used very carefully. Where did they store? These are all grains. They store, they cultivated their land. They had produced a lot of produce. Where did they store? If they had any granaries at those days? No. Where did they store? As grain had to be stored for both food and seeds, they stored both food and seeds. People had to think of ways of storing it. How did I store these food items? They think, how did I store these are all food items? In many years, in many areas, they began making a large clay pots. They prepared large clay pots. Nowadays, we are all using in summer season pots, clay pots. Okay, those pots were made by them to store those food items. And baskets also, some of the baskets also prepared by them, and or dug pits into the ground. They dug one pit inside the earth, they put these pots into that earth, they covered in this law dug pits into the ground. Like that, those people stored their food and seeds. Okay, children, have you understood this lesson? Next video I will continue the same lesson. Thank you. Bye.